the beginning of this chapter, Beren and Lúthien have returned to Doriath, but Melian is grieved at the loss of Lúthien's immortality and turned away from her. After this, Beren and Lúthien went off together and dwelt in Tol Galen until their death. They had a son named Dior, who was Thingol's heir. In this time, Maedhros was emboldened by the victory of Beren and Lúthien against Morgoth, and he urged the rest of the Eldar to unite against him. He formed the Union of Maedhros, or he was trying to form it, at least. However, the Oath of Fëanor loomed above the Noldor, and he received little help from the rest of the Eldar. Now Maedhros and his brothers demanded that Thingol give them the Silmaril, or else become their enemy, and Melian counseled him to surrender it, but Thingol refused. Celegorm and Curufin vowed to kill Thingol should they return victorious from battle, and he still refused to give them the Silmaril. Thingol fortified Doriath. With the help of the Naugrim and some of the houses of men, Maedhros prepared for war. Maedhros planned to attack Angband from the east and west, Maedhros from the east and Fingon from Hithlum, and their signal would come from a beacon in Dorthonion. As the day of the battle drew near, the hosts of Turgon came from Gondolin unexpectedly to aid Fingon, and this really was a nice boost of morale for Fingon. Morgoth sent a portion of his forces towards Hithlum with the errand of drawing out Fingon. They brought with them Gelmir, son of Gwilyn, one of the lords of Nargothrond, who had been captured, and they cut off his hands and feet and at last his head. At this, the Noldor were stirred to wrath, and they leapt forth for battle, which is exactly what Morgoth wanted them to do. Many of them were slain, and Gwyndor, who was the brother of Gelmir, was taken a prisoner. At this time, Fingon was cut off, and he could not come to his aid. Unfortunately for the Eldar, Morgoth had many spies amongst the houses of men, and they ultimately betrayed the elves. Tolkien writes, "Many spies and workers of treason he sent forth among them, as he was the better able to do now, for the faithless men of his secret allegiance were yet deep in the secrets of the sons of Fëanor." Later, Tolkien also writes, "Yet neither by wolf, nor by Balrog, nor by dragon would Morgoth have achieved his end, but for the treachery of men." And it's crazy, but Tolkien doesn't write anything about the treachery of women. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. The sons of Ulfang turned against the sons of Fëanor in battle, and while they weren't ultimately completely successful, because Maglor killed Uldor, who had been the leader of this treason, and the sons of Bor killed Ulfast and Ulwarth. However, none of the sons of Fëanor were able to get out of this sudden turn of events unharmed, although none of them were killed either. The Naugrim, however, stood firmly against Morgoth as he sent forth Glaurung the dragon, and if it wasn't for them, basically all of the Noldor would have been done for. Fingon and Turgon were assailed by Gothmog, lord of Balrogs, and Fingon was killed. At this point, Húrin and Huor urged Turgon to return to Gondolin, and so he escaped. And then Tolkien writes this really interesting prophecy, kind of, or like a doom. So at this point, Turgon is like, Gondolin isn't going to last long anyways because they're going to figure it out. But then Huor says, "Yet if it stands but a little while, then out of your house shall come the hopes of elves and men. This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death, though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again. From you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell." So I feel like that was an important quote. We're just going to hold on to that as we continue reading into the coming chapters. At this point, then, Huor was slain, and Húrin stood alone. At last he was taken alive as a prisoner to Morgoth, and thus ended the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. Morgoth's victory was great, and the sons of Fëanor were all scattered. Tolkien writes, "The realm of Fingon was no more, and the sons of Fëanor wandered as leaves before the wind." So the servants of Morgoth are roaming freely, just destroying as they desire, and the Easterlings who had served Morgoth in this battle and turned against their allies were given the realm of Hithlum to do with as they will, to bother everyone, mess up everything, plunder, and all that stuff. At Turgon's bidding, Círdan built 7 ships, and he commissioned them to go off and ask the Valar for help once again. but only one of these ambassadors returned, and his name was Voronwë. Now Morgoth was obsessed with Turgon, and the thought of finding him consumed his mind. Tolkien writes, "And most of all his kin, Morgoth feared Turgon." This is the kin of Fingolfin. "For of old in Valinor his eye had lighted upon him, and whenever he drew near, a shadow had fallen on his spirit, foreboding that in some time that yet lay hidden, from Turgon ruin should come to him." After this, when Huidan was taken captive, he was brought before Morgoth, but he would not yield to him. So Morgoth cursed him and forced him to watch as everything he loved was destroyed. And Morgoth also cursed Huidan's family or offspring. Morgoth commanded his servants to gather all of the slain from the battle and put them into a huge great pile just to kind of taunt everyone. And it formed like a giant hill because there were just so many people who died. And the elves named it the Hill of Slain or the Hill of Tears. This chapter is a bit shorter than last week, thank goodness, and I think it was perfect because next week's is going to be also quite a doozy. So I just thought I'd keep this summary short and sweet, and even though it's a very sad chapter, at least it's not too long. This video is a part of our Silmarillion guide series, which offers a quick and easy to understand introduction to the events, characters, and world of the Silmarillion. This guide is also available as a free ebook, which can be downloaded at teawithtolkien.com/shop. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or telling a friend about Tea with Tolkien.